Hey there, I have a special announcement. From May 22nd through May 28th, I'm rerunning my most popular episodes of your weekly dose of higher consciousness, all of which are what I call foundational basics. And I understand that we need to hear what I speak about more than a few times until it really starts to sink in. And be forewarned, these are from almost 5 years ago when I first began. So I may sound a bit different than I do now. I know I feel a lot different than I did back then. So I hope you enjoy these. And then next week, you're going to find out all about something new I'm cooking up here in Colorado, just outside of Aspen. How's that for a little name dropping? In the meantime, this is your last chance to enroll in Eckhart Tolle's all-new 4-month-long immersive program for his very popular online course, The Spiritual Guide to Conscious Manifestation, where you're going to discover your true creative powers and fulfill your highest purpose. It begins with a 4-day online retreat, May 30th through June 2nd, and you can still access his free mini video series or enroll in his program at the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/Eckhart Tolle, all one word, or click on the links below in the podcast. Now on for today's episode. Hey there, it's that time again for you to test your intuition or inner knowingness with your weekly dose of higher consciousness quiz. Today's quiz asks you to guess or know which of the following feelings or ways of being are of the highest consciousness. The first one is a decent regret, as understood and practiced in the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the first one. The second one is a way of being, which is one who overshares, meaning saying more than is necessary or contextually appropriate, as well as another possibility is using social media like a personal diary and treating acquaintances as if they were a therapist. And the third one is knowing or feeling that everything is okay. So I want you to sit with these three and put them in order from the highest to the lowest. So again, it's a decent regret, oversharing, or feeling everything is okay. That's this month's Higher Consciousness Quiz. But before I give you the answers and calibrations to this week's quiz, my name is Liz Garcia. I'm your happy host of your weekly dose of higher consciousness quizzes at highvibetRiberadio.com on the podcast and highvibetRibeTV.com on our YouTube channel. I'm also founder and editor-in-chief of the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com, which brings you this podcast. Now, my intention with these higher consciousness quizzes is to put consciousness and really impersonal energy fields into context based on the map of Dr. David R. Hawkins' map of consciousness and consciousnesscalibrations.com map of spiritual progress, and to help you start to feel, discern, or intuit your way to the truth about things. Like, let's stop guessing and start understanding. And what I love to say when I give you the calibrations is, do the math, right? Stop guessing. Look at the math of it all. Where's the energy? Where's their power? Where's their truth? And where is there not? You don't necessarily want to spend your time in lower consciousness that doesn't help you. It's destructive to you and downward pulling. Before I share the answers to the quiz, I want to go deeper with you and introduce you to subtle ways of receiving information or perceiving subtle energies. Any of these is likely an aspect of how you would answer today's quiz. So we all have something called the 4 C's within us. But some of the 4 C's are likely stronger than others within you. And you may have one that is so strong and innate you don't even know it until I point it out to you here today. So here are the 4 C's. The first one is clairsentience, which is clear feeling, which is clearly an intuitive sense. Clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. I would consider this kind of a psychic sense. Claircognizance, which is clear knowing, is also an intuitive sense. And then there's clairaudience, which is clear healing, which I would also consider another psychic sense. Clear hearing, not clear healing. Clairaudience is clear hearing. Now, what's interesting is I just created a quiz for this for one of my marketing clients, and I think the title was what's your strong suit? And the results of the quiz so far are that 39% of the people taking the quiz are clairsentient, which is really interesting to consider that intuition, developing your intuition is a big part of life these days. 34% of people are clairvoyant. I'm going to talk a little bit more about clairvoyance. 16% are claircognizant, and 11% are clairaudient. Well, I'll talk about these other 3 because they're not as common as clairsentience is. So when I went through a quantum spiritual awakening back in 2003, all of these senses just burst open to me. And I was receiving powerful transmissions and messages in all 4 of these ways. And it was quite profound and revealing, and there was really nothing scary about it because I don't know why it wasn't scary, but they were such powerful transmissions. They were just messages I was receiving were just matter of fact. I didn't need to question them. I didn't need to convince anyone else of them. They were just messages intended for me, and I got them. So my understanding about having gone through all of this awakening, is that I removed blocks to all of them quickly, which is likely how you can access more of your 4 C's once you understand what they are, which I'm going to describe in a second. So I jumped from, probably anywhere from the 300, I was in grief and loss at the time before I jumped into this awakening. So I jumped from grief and loss, which is like 75 to 100, up to 540 and above. That's a quantum spiritual awakening for sure when you understand the map of consciousness. So I removed significant blocks quickly when I went into this awakening state, and all of these avenues burst open for me. That's not an understatement. So I just want to tell you that it's likely you've got blocks to some of these and why you're not receiving information clearly in some of these ways. So now I promised you the answer to today's quiz, but I wanted to introduce you to this topic so that you can pay attention to how you come up with solutions to something and how you receive or perceive the subtle energies of things or information you receive. And this totally pertains to today's quiz because what I'm asking you is about feelings or ways of being. These are subtle energies. This is not something that's it's not easily accessible usually, like what's the difference between them, except for now that they are with consciousness calibrations. So anyway, I want to share a little bit more about the 4 C's as I have experienced them at higher levels of consciousness. So I removed a lot of blocks so I can describe to you what it's like to be, clairsentience. I'm not going to go into that, but the intuition, I've always been intuitive, so it's innate to me. I didn't even know what it was. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. So I already was what I was, which is intuitive clairsentient. But I don't recall being clairvoyant, clairaudient, or claircognizance until then. It really burst open. I saw what it was. So clairvoyance is when you receive messages through your third eye where you're actually seeing like a mini movie, you're seeing words, you're seeing a picture that speaks volumes about something. And typically I receive these images when I'm just waking up. And I like to practice my flexing my clairvoyant muscle by asking a question in the morning. And I will just lie in bed because, I'm just waking up from sleep and there's not a lot of other energies interfering because the day hasn't started yet. So I'll ask a question and I'll just receive this flash of an image that either answers the question or confuses me. It's kind of funny. I'm like, I don't know what the heck that means. And many of them have colors in them. And colors have meant to come to me now in an understanding that there's something going on with one of the chakra systems because they're all different colors. So it's either a validation that you're opening up the chakra a bit or whatever. It's just a subtle message. And then other images are quite clear. Like one disturbing image I got many years ago is I saw my little, 8-pound puppy get hit by a car. In an image, it was like a little mini movie, and I dismissed it. And then it did in fact happen to her. So I don't know that I could have avoided it. Maybe I could have. Maybe I could have prayed more and paid attention to how I cared for her. But she ended up getting hit by a truck right in front of us. But that image was like a premonition image, as an example. And I also get interesting, I don't even know what to make of them. Images, like when I'm driving in my car, I'll have images flash before me that are very kind of matrixy-like, puzzly-like. I don't understand them. I'm like, whoa. I'm just driving a car, getting this stuff. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So anyway, that's clairvoyance as I've experienced it. Many times I'll see a word that's like a banner all lit up with light, and I get it. I'm like, okay, roger that. Transmission received. I speak to my spirit guides or higher power, whatever it may be that's communicating these things to me. Super interesting. And clairaudience is the ability to hear outside of your head, like it's messages from spirit or entities or whatever may be communicating with me, but it's clearly coming from outside of me. I'll be when this first happened, I would hear hey Liz, I love you, or hey Liz, thank you, or just a word. Sometimes I can hear a whole sentence, and then so you're hearing outside of your head as if someone's standing there talking to you. And this is the least strongest in that test result. That was 11% are clairaudience. So it's unusual, it's kind of rare, and it's kind of, people could be afraid of it, who the heck is talking to me? And there's another experience I've had, which I don't know what it's called, but I've felt the energy of someone pinching me awake. I'm like, oh my God. It was kind of funny. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I've had that a few times where someone pinches me in the back or some energy is pinching me in the back, and I feel it clearly. I'm like, what are you doing? Okay. The last one is claircognizance, which I feel is the superpower of superpowers. And I experienced this on maybe a handful of occasions where I was in despair and I needed to know the truth of something, and the truth of something just washed over me. And the despair went away because I had to accept the truth because it was truthful, and you just feel it. It's a knowingness. This is beyond feeling and intuiting. It's a clear knowing. And I believe that's the ultimate superpower, and maybe that's why only 11% of the people have it. I don't experience claircognizance on such a gross, I think the word is gross, where you're really feeling the knowingness as much as maybe clairsentience, which it's so innate. Again, I don't even understand that I'm intuitive. It's just who I am. So those are the 4 C's I wanted to introduce you to. And also, if you get pinched by a from energy outside of you, don't be afraid. It's probably your spirit guide, which, by the way, exists at a very high level. It calibrates as true as that we all have them. So I'm like, all right, you're our band of our good friends watching over us, help guide us to some extent. I always say, roger that, receive that transmission. Thank you very much. So anyway, you can have fun with it for sure. So let's get back to the answer to today's quiz, which asks you to perceive or know which of the following feelings or emotions is of the highest consciousness. Now, these calibrations came from a website, a community I subscribe to called consciousnesscalibrations.com, which you can subscribe to for free. And I believe you have access to about 75% of the content there, if you want access to the rest of it, you pay for the subscription. And I have a paid subscription because I understand how valuable what it is we're receiving there is. And I read calibrations a lot just to align my energies and really align with truth in life as to where true power is and how to kind of align with it better and make better choices, right? So here are the 3 things we're looking at today. A decent regret as understood and practiced in the 12 Steps of A.A. Alcoholics Anonymous. Oversharing, which is saying more than is necessary or contextually appropriate. Another example is using social media like a personal diary and treating acquaintances as if they were a therapist. And finally, everything is okay. Just feeling like everything is okay is the 3rd one. So let's start with the lowest level of consciousness, which should not have been a surprise. Oversharing calibrates at 130 on the map of consciousness, which is the low level of consciousness. And I got to tell you, I when I read about oversharing, I realized I was doing that at some points in my life after the awakening, where I went into, I had PTSD essentially. It was recovering from trauma and nervous breakdown, things like that. And I was caught in this energy field of oversharing. And I didn't know what I was doing until I read about this. I'm like, oh, that wasn't such a good thing for me, because it's a negative attractor field that keeps you down and doesn't lift you up. It's more destructive and downward pulling, this energy field, than constructive. So oversharing is in the energy field essentially of desire, cravingness. And you're enslaved to the energy, which I definitely felt enslaved to this. And I noticed this oversharing in others just as an observation. I'm like, oh, and just a compassionate understanding that there's some aspect of us that is disappointed and doesn't feel like we're enough, and this type of thing can lead to the energy field of oversharing. So if you catch yourself doing this, just wake up and say, oh, okay, whoa, I got to pull back on this and examine why I got to let go of this, because it doesn't serve me, and it certainly is a turnoff to others because it's of lower consciousness. Though your friends and family may just accept you, but some others that don't know you, it will be a turnoff. They're not going to want to get to know you if you're doing this type of thing. Okay, again, there's no judgment or opinion necessarily about this. These are just energy fields, impersonal attractor fields of energy that have been measured. Like, what kind of energy is going on there? And then, okay, so that was the lowest level of consciousness. Next up is a decent regret as understood and practiced in the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. The energy of that is 240, which is higher energy, constructive, upward pulling, useful, and helpful. So instead of disparaging or criticizing yourself for something that happened in the past, pivot it and do the math. I like to say do the math. Instead of criticizing yourself, go with a decent regret. Like, have a decent regret. Like, I wish I had a decent regret about oversharing in the past, as an example. I certainly do. I have a decent regret about it, but I understand where I was at and why I was in this. You're in this attractor field. You don't know what it is that you're doing. You're just part of the energy of it. And finally, if you guess that everything okay is of the highest level of consciousness today, you'd be correct at 300. And this is the energy of balance and normalcy and sanity. And I know this is one of my go-to energy fields is I choose to be balanced, I choose to be sane, I choose to be normal. Everything is okay. These are all the same energies at 300. And if you go through highs and lows, right, like a roller coaster ride, this is an opportunity now to become aware of the fact you're on a roller coaster ride and say, you know what? I choose to be balanced and normal and sane. They're all the same energy. Everything is okay. That could be a nice little affirmation. And to choose it, not necessarily, choosing is a more powerful thing than intending, which I'll do an episode on that because I've kind of discovered that. But choosing to be balanced, normal, and sane, everything is okay. It should start leveling out that, I like to call it a wave, that frequency, that wavelength of that roller coaster. It's really an energy field of waves to really level those things out and cease and desist with the absurdity of the ego, which is the roller coaster ride. Okay, so that's today's quiz. How did you do? Did you know? It wasn't too difficult, but you may have not known the difference between decent regret and everything is okay, but the words in it kind of suggest a way to set them apart. And which of the 4 C's did you use, or do you feel are your strongest within you? That's something to answer today. And next time we have a quiz, I might just remember to mention this and pay attention to how you're receiving or perceiving subtle energies of these things I'm sharing. They're emitting a subtle energy, and you just kind of have to feel. You either see or hear or feel or know your way to the answer. Okay, if you like what's going on here, share it with family or friends if you want, or rate and review us and let me know other topics that might be of interest to you. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again next week. You'll hear me again next week. Hey there, Lovey Lou. If you are new to your weekly dose of Higher Consciousness podcast or an avid listener, I have something just for you. I created a landing page with all of my playlists in one place. So for new listeners, I created a playlist called Foundational Basics. This is where you will want to begin to come up to speed on your understanding of the map of consciousness, a proven energy scale for realizing your ultimate potential by Dr. David R. Hawkins, and with where we are now. For avid listeners, I've created playlists for all of my popular topics like 1001 Ways to Be of Higher Consciousness, 1001 Ways to Let Go of. Those great higher consciousness quizzes that helps you test your intuition and develop discernment skills, tools for transformation, high vibe book recommendations, and my general main topics. You can find all of these playlists on the website at themindbodyspiritnetwork.com/podcast. Or you can find it in a link below in the show notes. Now back to today's episode.